She didn't hit a half-court shot. She didn't throw a no-look pass that broke the internet. She didn't do anything that would typically end up in a highlight reel. What she did was quieter than that, and somehow infinitely more powerful. During a preseason matchup against Nigeria, Caitlyn Clark absorbed a hit that the officials standing directly beside her simply chose to ignore. And for the first time in 2 years of professional basketball, she didn't let it go. No screaming, no dramatic arm waving, no technical foul. Just a cold, direct look at that referee and a few very specific words that made every single person watching understand that something fundamental had changed. This wasn't frustration boiling over. This was a decision, a calculated, deliberate line drawn in the sand by a player who has quietly absorbed more than anyone should ever have to. And the entire league just felt it.
This is what you gotta do. Now, for all the people that said Caitlyn Clark whistle ain't fixed, watch this play right here. Caitlyn Clark told the referee to call the first foul, then hit a FU3. Watch this. Look. So the referee ain't call it, right? Boom. Referee on the... So if you guys watch this clip, this referee in the back called the same foul. Caitlyn Clark went to the...
To understand why that single moment carried so much weight, you have to understand what came before it. 2 full years of professional basketball where Caitlyn Clark was arguably the most physically targeted player on the court, night after night, city after city, and she said absolutely nothing about it. Think about what that actually means. This is a player who was hip-checked to the floor by Kennedy Carter in a play so violent it made national headlines. Cameras caught it. Analysts dissected it. The entire basketball world watched the replay and collectively winced. And when Clark walked to the post-game podium, she said nothing inflammatory. No call-outs, no demands for league discipline, nothing. This is the same player who was repeatedly knocked down, face-guarded full court, and subjected to defensive schemes that walked a very thin line between aggressive basketball and something far more deliberate. She absorbed soft tissue injuries from the accumulated physical toll of being the most hunted guard in the league. Defenders didn't just guard her, they made a point of making her feel every possession. And then, just 5 days before the Nigeria game, Alina Smith slid her foot directly under Clark's landing zone on a 3-point attempt. For anyone unfamiliar with basketball mechanics, that is one of the most career-threatening plays in the sport. It's the exact move that caused catastrophic ankle damage to Kawhi Leonard. Clark landed, gathered herself, and walked to the podium afterward to praise the referees. 2 years of that. And then Nigeria happened. Just days before that viral Nigeria moment, Caitlyn Clark sat in front of the media after dropping 21 points on 66% shooting against the Dallas Wings and said something that most people completely glossed over. She praised the referees. She praised the new collective bargaining agreement rules designed specifically to eliminate the excessive holding, jersey grabbing, and off-ball interference that had defined her first 2 seasons. She was calm, diplomatic, and genuinely positive about the direction of officiating in the league. On the surface, it looked like standard professional courtesy, a star player saying the right things after a dominant performance. But read between the lines and a far more calculated message emerges. By publicly praising tighter officiating, she was simultaneously acknowledging what the old standard had allowed. She was telling the league office, the referee association, and every defensive coordinator watching that she had survived the physical gauntlet they put her through, and now that the rules demanded a cleaner game, she expected that standard to be enforced every single possession. She was building a paper trail of expectations. She established a public baseline. And when that referee against Nigeria failed to meet that baseline, when illegal contact went completely uncalled with new rules explicitly designed to prevent exactly that, Clark didn't shrug it off. She reminded that official of the standard they were now contractually expected to uphold. This wasn't spontaneous frustration. The press conference was the setup. Nigeria was the response. Here's what actually happened on that court, and why the absence of drama made it more powerful than any screaming match ever could have been. Clark absorbed contact. clear, visible, documentable contact that officials standing mere feet away chose not to call. In the past, that play ends with her getting up, moving to the next possession, and filing it away in silence. That has been the pattern for 24 consecutive months. But this time, she turned directly to the referee. No wild gestures, no performance for the crowd, no attempt to draw a technical foul from the opposing bench. Just a cold, locked-in look and very specific words directed at that official that made the message impossible to misread. What makes this moment so significant isn't the anger, it's the control. She wasn't reacting emotionally. She was communicating professionally and directly, the way a franchise player communicates with an official when they have decided that silent acceptance is no longer a viable option. The choice of a preseason exhibition against Nigeria also matters more than people realize. Some analysts have suggested this was spontaneous, just a player finally hitting her limit. But consider the alternative. Consider that she understood a meaningless preseason game was the perfect arena to establish this new dynamic without the pressure of standings or playoff implications. Low-stakes environment, high-stakes message. She drew the line somewhere the consequences were manageable. That is not emotion. That is strategy. Around the same time this was unfolding, WNBA Hall of Famer Candace Parker sat down on her Post Moves podcast and said something that reframed this entire conversation in a way that cannot be ignored. Parker drew a direct analytical parallel between Caitlyn Clark's situation in the WNBA and what Stephen Curry experienced during his historic rise in the NBA. The argument is devastatingly simple. If you referee Curry strictly by the rulebook, he becomes nearly impossible to stop legally. His off-ball movement is so relentless and his shooting range so absurd that defenders are constantly forced into illegal contact just to slow him down. Stopping Curry often requires fouling him, whether officials call it or not. Parker stated without hesitation that Clark operates in that exact same rare category of offensive gravity. Her logo range forces defenses to pick her up 35 feet from the basket. Her passing vision punishes every double team. The only realistic way to neutralize her is through physical contact that should be drawing whistles every single time. But Parker didn't stop at identifying the problem. She prescribed a solution. She advised Aaliyah Boston to embrace the role Draymond Green plays for Curry on the Golden State Warriors. Set punishing screens. Take timely fouls. Make opposing defenses understand that cheap shots on Clark come with immediate interior consequences. When a certified legend publicly validates what independent analysts have been saying for 2 years, the conversation stops being a fan debate and becomes undeniable fact. It would be genuinely unfair to let the officiating moment completely overshadow what Clark actually did on the court, because the basketball itself was a quiet, efficient masterclass that deserves its own spotlight. In under 13 minutes of playing time, she scored 12 points, distributed 4 assists, and shot a staggering 75% from the field. She didn't force a single shot. She didn't need extended minutes to impose her will on the game. She was surgical, precise, and completely in control of the offensive system around her. The Indiana Fever won 105-57. It wasn't close. It was never going to be close. But the way they won matters just as much as the margin. Kelsey Mitchell, operating in the enormous defensive space that Clark's presence creates, bounced back emphatically with 17 highly efficient points. Aaliyah Boston, stepping into her expanded role as the interior hub, recorded 6 assists in just 10 minutes of preseason action. Michaela Timpson was flawless, contributing 12 points without missing a single attempt from the field. The roster looked cohesive in a way that last year's version sometimes didn't. There was a fluidity to the ball movement and an understanding of spacing that suggested serious growth from the entire group. But here's the thing about dominant blowout victories. They confirm what you already suspected. The officiating moment, by contrast, confirmed something nobody had seen before. The stats showed dominance. That moment showed evolution. Preseason basketball exists in a kind of protected bubble. Officials experiment with new rules. Players work through new schemes. Coaches test rotations they would never risk in April. The entire atmosphere carries an unspoken understanding that these games exist outside the consequences that define the real season. Which is exactly why history tells us to be cautious about projecting preseason officiating standards onto what happens when the standings actually matter. Across virtually every major professional sports league, there is a deeply documented pattern of officials swallowing their whistles as the intensity escalates. Regular season games get called differently than preseason games. Playoff games get called differently than regular season games. The more the stakes rise, the more physical contact tends to go unpunished. It is not a conspiracy. It is a deeply ingrained institutional tendency that has defined professional officiating for decades. The WNBA is now sitting at a genuinely critical crossroads. They have the biggest star in the history of women's professional basketball, publicly demanding accountability, and doing so during a period where the league's financial and cultural momentum is stronger than it has ever been. The new CBA rules exist on paper. The question is whether they exist on the court in November when playoff seeding is on the line. If the league fails to maintain these standards when the pressure arrives, Clark's Nigeria moment becomes a warning that went completely unheeded. And that would be a failure not just for one player, but for the entire trajectory of the sport. 2 years ago, she came into this league politely absorbing everything thrown at her and saying nothing. Now, she is a player who shoots from the logo, orchestrates an offense that makes teammates look like entirely different players, and looks a referee dead in the eyes when they miss a call that should have been automatic. This is the most dangerous version of Caitlyn Clark anyone has seen yet. Not because she is angry, but because she is done being passive, and she is doing it with complete, unnerving control. The league office knows it, the referee association knows it, every defensive coordinator drawing up schemes for the upcoming season definitely knows it. The silence lasted exactly 2 years. What comes after it could reshape the officiating standards of this entire league for a generation. So here's the question worth sitting with. Is a more vocal Caitlyn Clark better for the game, or does it open a door nobody is ready for? Stay locked with my channel Simply Explained for more updates.